Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, miss.
What shall I do? Only two people are there. Shall we wait for some time or we'll start?
Uh, we'll, uh, we'll stay for a few minutes now. I think it's better.
Okay. So just read this. So if another three people join, we will start. Okay. So just think of inclusive education. Actually, your module, single module, of course, is special education. Vishesha Adhyapana. But inclusive education, they gave the topic as inclusive education. So today I'm going to do inclusive education. I'm introducing because inclusive education is now in progressing in Sri Lanka. And the other the presentation, actually I prepared special education presentations, right? So next presentation will be special education, and so in that module, they are talking about diseases and the special need children, and most popular these diseases in under special education. So I think this topic, right, this module will be important. And also I think it will be interesting because as teachers, you have everyone must know regarding special education. So now we are using another name, differently able children, right? Rizna, good evening.
Good evening, madam.
We are waiting for another two to start.
Uh,
So have you heard about this inclusive education?
Yes, miss.
Yes, Shamin. Can you
Yeah, miss.
just tell me regarding your experience regarding inclusive education?
Miss, in my experience,
Hmm.
in my classroom, most of uh, they have some special needs children.
Children, how many children are there? Special need.
Around two. Each class I have two.
Uh-huh.
and
So is there
LSA
any
also.
other class also having special need children in your school? Any other classes?
In my classes.
No, no. You're in your class, there are two.
Yeah.
So any other students in your school?
Yeah, miss.
Special need?
Most of I'm currently I'm teaching for elementary and high schools also. Most of they have some LSAs with special needs children.
Around how many students are there in your school as special need
Um,
children? No, just around, just that means
mm,
earlier we find few students, so one or two students in a school, but now that
mm,
number is increasing.
yeah, most of more than I think 50.
50, my God.
Yeah.
Right. So actually, we have to. This subject is very important, right? Because you have two children, special needs children or differently able children in your classroom. So, so we are having inclusive education, no? Right? So now our system is inclusive education. So, any idea of inclusive education? We are going to learn that, right? Just I wanted to know, that means I'm checking the pre-knowledge of your, right? Whenever we start a lesson, we have to see whether the students are ready, right? So readiness means, right, whether they know anything about, because now today I am starting a new lesson. If I am continuing a lesson, definitely I have to check the readiness of the children. That means whether they have the knowledge of the previous lesson, right? So I'm just asking, so what will be inclusive education and special education? Special education, of course, you can understand. Special, something special, not normal, right? But inclusive education.
Miss, I think uh, inclusive education means while we're teaching in a classroom,
Mm-hmm.
we have to differentiate our task
Mm-hmm.
for high level, low level, and
Mm-hmm.
middle achievers also. Especially while we have any when we have any special or inclusive, sorry, special needs children in our classroom,
Mm-hmm.
we have to create our task regarding to their knowledge and the
Yes, so inclusive in means in out. We know that the meaning of in and out, no, right? Inclusive. So we are learning inclusive education under special education. So special education children or differently able children also inside the class, right? Under one roof. So normally we find normal children in the classroom, no? But now we have to include differently able children also in the normal class, right? So that type of education is uh, actually named as inclusive education, right? So here, these are the outcomes or outline. First of all, you have to know what do you mean by inclusive education, right? So you have to understand. Whenever you start your lesson in your classroom, any subject, right, you have to explain your topic first, right? If they understand the topic, that will be easy for them to follow your lesson, right? So what do you mean by inclusive education? What is the need for inclusive education? Why all of a sudden they changed our education system as inclusive education? And what are the advantages of inclusive education? So there are advantages. That's what they change as inclusive education. What are the barriers for adopting inclusive education in classroom? So there are a lot of barriers, right? That means, especially in Sri Lanka, there are actually we are not ready for inclusive education, right? All of a sudden they uh, impose that hereafter the education system will be inclusive education, but system is not ready to follow, right? And how inclusive education is embedded in RTE, where that means so inclusive education embedded in retarded teaching, right? So that means inclusive education means you have to teach for the normal children as well as the special education children. That means differently able children, right? So this is the introduction. Any child may experience a special need during the course of educational years. So have you heard about UNESCO? What is UNESCO? Any idea?
So, Organization for Educational and Scientific Cultural
Yeah,
Organi
yes, it's a non-governmental organization working for education worldwide, not only in Sri Lanka. UNESCO is always working for education, especially for education. And UNICEF, right? That is also one NGO, right? That UNICEF is working for small children, right? So here, some children feel left out, right? So what is actually left out? So I'm not expecting a 100% correct answer, right? Just you have to try. So left outs means they're feeling we are not uh, actually suitable for this, right? So left out and never enter school. So dropouts, in another word, dropouts, or um, they're not coming to school at all, right? Never enter school or enter only for a few years, and as repeaters become dropouts or more correctly pushed outs, right? So left outs and the push outs, there are two different things. Push out means uh, so they don't want to be there really, right? So the environment pushed out them from the school, right? So without their needs having been met, why they don't want to come to school? Because their need is not met. So the need will be different from normal children. So if we are going to have these type of children in our normal class, we have to consider their needs too, right? So these children are a vivid illustration of the failure of schools to teach rather than pupils' failure to learn. A school system emphasizing education for all should ensure the right of all children to a meaningful education based on individual needs and abilities. So, education for all. This is also UNESCO's theme. So, education for all means all have to have the rights to education. whether the child is normal or differently able, every child have the right of education, right? So that's what education for all. That is the theme of UNESCO first, right? Uh, this introduction explanation from Johnson 2002, right? So under inclusive education, we are going to learn some types of disabilities. Abilities, disabilities. So that means they have some sort of issues, right? What are the issues they have? What are the problems they have? Physical problem, communication disorders, behavioral disorders, mental retardation, right? Uh, So here the physical problem means, right, hearing impairment and the visual impairment is the most common physical problem in normal classrooms, right? Hearing impairment and visual impairment, right? So already we have three types of learners in our classroom. One type of learners are visual learners. Second type is auditory learners. And the third one is kinesthetic learners. Right? So here, if the children have hearing impairment, hearing means they can't hear properly, so they can't be auditory learners. Right? There are students who will learn by hearing. There are students who is learning by seeing, right? And the other group, they wanted to do and learn, right? So here, if they have physical problem or diseases like epilepsy or cerebral palsy, cerebral palsy means it's a brain disorder, and epilepsy, of course, is normally the children, the normal disease, right? So that type of problem will lead the children to weak in education, right? And sometimes they might have communication disorders, speech impairments, oral language disorders. So sometimes they can't speak, sometimes they can't pronounce some letters, pronounce some words, and continuously they can't speak, right? Struggling. So those things also, it's a kind of, that means it's not that serious thing, but anyway, that is also a disability because the other children can bully them, right? And the third one is behavioral disorders. So sometimes we can observe some different behavior in children, right? So hyperactivity means that child can't stay in one place, is running here and there and fighting and, hyperactivity, right? Actually, not the normal, it's beyond that. And attention disorders, suicidal tendencies. So the suicidal tendencies, of course, mostly in adults, small children can't understand that. And mental retardation, these type of disability also, they are sometimes you can find in the classroom. Right. So there are two words, segregation and integration. Right. Just read once, I will explain what is segregation and integration. So earlier in this outline, right, the last outcome is how inclusive education is embedded in RTE, right? So RTE means rights to education. So why they have introduced this inclusive education, that means to prove or to um, give an opportunity for differently able children also for right of education, right? So here two different words: segregation, that means dividing, right? Integration, your taking children together, right? So segregation, disabled people of all ages or those learners with special educational needs being placed in any form of segregated education setting. This tends to force disabled people to lead a separate life. Right, so up to certain, I think now almost five to 6 years back or 10 years back, we had a normal system. So the schools are not entertain these differently able children, right? Even now, I think differently able children, if any special need teacher is not there, it's very difficult for the teacher to look after. So the teacher will look after the normal children and this child will be there physically, but the teacher is not going to teach anything specially, right? Under segregation, this tends to force disabled people to lead a separate life. So that child feel, I'm not normal child, right? That's a teacher is not teaching me. And I can't understand what the teacher is teaching. So I'm different. In that way, that child is thinking. And integration means disabled children or children with learning difficulties attending mainstream school. Right? So now this is the rule. This is what we call inclusive education, right? So disabled children or children with learning difficulties also attending mainstream school, right? So the child is accepted into the ordinary school, but is often taught in a separate classroom. So this is also another point, because if there are children with autism, Down syndrome, so the normal teacher can't teach, right? So so if they are with the other normal children, they will get some confidence, right? But the differently able children are not in the same level of knowledge as normal children. That we have to understand. And subjects like science and maths, right, they can't cope up with the normal children. So those subjects have to be taught different, separately, right? The child has little or no contact with his or her non-disabled peers. If the child is always with disabled peers, right, so they feel, right, we are not normal children, right? So actually, so they normally they are separating, because they are thinking that we are different from normal children, right? So that's what, to avoid that, the government is enforce this inclusive education system all over the world. Now that is the system. So problem faced by them, differently able children. So inferiority complex, even though if they are with normal children, they have these type of things, inferiority complex, right? So when the teacher is teaching for the normal children, these type of children, differently able children can understand. We can't understand like normal children. They can answer for the questions asked by the teacher, but we can't. They can understand that, right? So inferiority complex, lack of understanding, adjustment problem, right? So in the inclusive education, sometimes the differently able children will not move with normal children. They're scared, right? So isolated and segregated, they wanted to be together, right? Lag behind because they don't actually so feeling of extra burden because they are so not coming forward to do anything, lag behind, right? Feeling of extra burden and insecurity. That's why they are not happy, right? So lack of expression, introvert nature, right? So always they're not exposing, right? They wanted to be in a corner. Negative approach, shyness. These are the problems we can see or observe among these differently able children. So, inclusion. According to Allure 2002, inclusion is about minimizing exclusion and fostering participation for all students in the culture within a wider framework of support for all children in ordinary school. So you can see the picture, right? Normal children and the differently able children all are together, right? So inclusion is about minimizing exclusion. We are not dividing, segregating, right? And fostering participation for all students in the culture within a wider framework of support for all children in ordinary school. So they are happy to go to the ordinary school. They are thinking, right, we also have rights to go to the common schools, normal schools, right? And the abbreviation of inclusive education is IE, inclusive education, is a new approach towards educating the children with disability and learning difficulties with that of normal ones within the same roof. So you can see the picture, right? One student is in the wheelchair. So this is a new approach towards educating the children with disability and learning difficulties with that of normal ones within the same roof, right? They're in one class, but normal children and the disability learning difficulty children also together. So meaning of inclusive education is defined as learning environment that promotes the full personal, academic and professional development of all learners, irrespective of race, class, color, gender, disability, sexual preference, learning style, and language. Right? So real inclusive education is that all learners, right? We are not considering the race, class, caste, color, gender. We never think whether it is a girl or boy. Disability, what are the disability or learning difficulties they have? Sexual preference, Whether we like to have girls only or boys only, no, not that. Learning style. So learning styles also will be different here, right? And language. This is the meaning of inclusive education. I think, are you all with me yesterday for comparative education?
Yes, madam.
So under comparative education, we learn language issues, right? So normally, so different type of people, that means indigenous people and migrants from different countries will speak different languages, right? So the inclusive education setup also, they will be speak different languages, right? We are not considering about their language also. And principles of inclusive education: no discrimination with student, right? So whether the child is normal or differently able, we are not going to discriminate children, right? We are not pointing out their difficulties. Equal educational opportunity to all, right? So there are rights. School adapt to the need of student. Equal educational benefits for all students. The students' views are listened to and taken seriously. So the teacher have to listen to the differently able children. That will give a very ease for those children. They like that because the care is, and they like to have the care and love. Individual differences between students are a source of richness and diversity and not a problem, right? So why they have introduced inclusive education to the education system? Because students are a source of richness and diversity and not a problem. So aims and objective of inclusive education: education for all, protection of rights, identification of skills, development of social consciousness, to prepare for new challenges, because differently able children also we are sending to the community. So they have to survive there, right? So we have to identify what are the talents they have, what are the intelligence they have, and we have to develop that and guide them to go in that path, right? To prepare development of brotherhood to improve quality of education. So in some schools and in some campus, right, you would have seen the short people, right? They are matured, but they didn't grow, right? That type of students also, they are with normal children, right? Uh, and need and importance of inclusive education. Why they introduce inclusive education? What is the need? To fulfill the constitutional responsibilities. If we are continuously separate and segregate them, right? So the special need children will be some different group, right? They are not going to include, they are not going to mingle with normal people. So that is not good. For the development of healthy citizenship, for achieving the universalization, developing feeling of self-respect, for social equality, self-reliant, right? These are the needs and importance of inclusive education. So, in 2004, they think of this inclusive education. That concept came, scope of inclusive education, a well-thought out inclusive education program has the potential to meet the diverse educational needs of all children. So what is the diversity? Children in remote tribal areas, right? So if we can think of our Vedas, right? So that tribe children, working children, right? They're not going to school, and child labor, working, children with disabilities, girls living in difficult circumstances. In some countries, girls are not allowed to go to school, right? And children with HIV, AIDS, and other chronic illness, right? Earlier, I think before 30, 40 years back, this is a huge issue in schools, right? So even though HIV, AIDS is not spread, it is transmit through blood only. So the children are not mingled with HIV, AIDS children, right? So that students also a kind of um, special need children. And children of migrant laborers, street children, and all other children, right? So street children means the parents send those children to beg. So after that, so we are thinking begging means they're not getting, they will get small amount of money, but for a day they are earning more than 2,000-3,000, right? So they will use drugs because they have enough of money, right? So street children also one group of special need children. And process of inclusive education, awareness raising on the right to education for all children at local, regional, and national levels. So UNESCO only started this right to education for all concept. Parent support to understand their children's educational, social, and sometimes medical needs. Right. So when I was working at NIE, right? So first time we started um, this that means sign language program, right? Diploma in sign language, right? But it's open for parents also, right? Because these deaf and dumb children, if they have, the parents also must learn sign language. If the children and the parents both have to know sign language, then only they can converse it. Right, so the children, the parents are coming and learning sign language. And then they can convey with the, that means they can communicate with the children, right? So when we start that course, right, the parents will share their experiences, right? How they are rearing the children and what type of life they are leading, right? It's very pathetic, right? So, and policies, developing inclusive education policies, revising existing policies. So to start inclusive education, we need a policy. Teacher training programs to promote inclusive practices, right? So in each and every training program, teacher training program, they have to include inclusive education, special need education, and specialized technique for teaching children with a range of learning and communication styles and needs, right? So I think in foreign countries, they have well-trained special need teachers. So those teachers can handle any type of differently able children. So inclusion in school. Now, inclusive education is running in school. So, inclusive education is educating all students in age-appropriate general education classes in their neighborhood schools with high-quality instruction, intervention, and supports, so all students can be successful in the core curriculum. So when we conduct the B.Ed program, right, they have one subject called project. So under project, a lot of teachers, right, they organized or they have structured a different classroom set up for special need children. Because there's no special class for them in any school. So in especially in those who are coming to learn B.Ed, right, in their schools. So they try to separately have one class with facilities, right? I think the parents also helped in that plight, right? So inclusive schools have a collaborative and respectful school culture where students with disabilities are presumed to be competent, develop positive social relationship with peers, and are fully participating members of the school community. So we can have inclusive schools, but the attitude have to change, right? We have to change the attitude of the children because normal children have to accept the differently able children. And normal children are ready to help for the these differently able children, then only that education will be successful, right? And inclusion is an educational approach and philosophy that provides all students with community membership and great opportunities for academic and social achievement. And schools and districts have a zero rejection policy when it comes to registering and teaching children in their region. So any principal or teacher can't reject differently able children to enter the school. All children are welcomed and valued. That is what we call inclusive education. So all children belong, all children learn in different ways. It is every child right to be included. And apart from admitting children with mild disabilities who can be educated in regular classrooms, inclusion also addresses the needs of hundreds of children already present in the regular classroom. Right, so without identifying these special needs, right, maybe visual impairment, there's a hearing impairment, right? There are a lot of children, right? They are coming with impairments and going with impairments because teachers don't know to identify these differences. who are affected by mild and to moderate learning difficulties, which go largely undetected and untreated. If the teacher is expert in special education, definitely they will identify. But our normal teachers, they don't have any knowledge regarding special education diagnosis, these diseases, special needs, right? So these children carry the risk of becoming dropouts due to poor school performance. So this is normal thing now because they are not up to standard as normal children. So definitely they will not good in the academic side. That means poor performance and may suffer from irreparable psychological and emotional trauma throughout their growing up years, besides never being able to achieve academic success. So we know that they are very poor in academic performance, but if we are going to teach in the same way, definitely continuously that these children will have psychological effect, right? Maybe inferiority complex, and later that inferiority complex can lead to depression, right? So what are requirements or modification for inclusive school? So these things we have to think. So now we are having inclusive schools. So sensitization, we have to realize, right now we are in inclusive system, modified curriculum. So we can't have the same type of curriculum as normal children for special need children or differently able children. Access and barrier-free environment. So with the wheelchair, how can a child enter into the school? There's no lift in most of the school, right? And no trails. If a child is come with scratches, how can that child climb up, right? So if there are, so normally schools have limited space, right? So they used to put up upstairs. So we have to think of these children. So inclusive education means we can't have the classes only in down floor, right? So we have to think of that also. Resource teacher and resource room, service of therapist and counselors. Yes. So in normal schools, right, in Sri Lanka, we don't have counselors and therapists, right? Even resource room and resource teachers are not available. So what is sensitization? A number of challenges still need to be addressed to implement the aims and objective of an inclusive society. The attitudinal barriers ingrained as part of India's historical response to disability must be worked upon through educational programs for sensitizing both teachers and general population, right? So not only teachers, general population, parents also must aware of this inclusive education. Create social advocacy campaigns using social media platforms to sensitize students and stakeholders in the field of higher education, right? So yesterday, I think one student told, blind students enter the university, and now that student is in Peradeniya University, right? So, so it's a good achievement, right? So inclusion in school, not only modifying curriculum, right? 4 factors influence the effectiveness of curriculum modification. We have to think of individual needs, subject-specific needs, teacher's role, and school support and use of technology. Right? The use of technology is more fruitful decision to teach in these inclusive classes. And modified textbooks, differentiated instruction, right? So differentiated instruction means you're not only using one method, right? You're using different methods, right? So in this, so we visited to Thailand once, right? For an educational excursion, especially to get the experience of this inclusive education. That means they are having special need children. So one teacher is teaching in 4 different teaching methods in one class with the help of technology, right? So in that class, we came to know, right? So through technology, you can satisfy different type of disabled learners, right? So teacher is very experienced teacher, well-trained teacher. So we can see how that teacher is helping for each group, right? And using technology and is putting answers and evaluating everything that teacher is doing. So how we can have access and barrier-free environment as a mandatory requirement of barrier-free school environment after implementation of Right to Education Act in 2009, and to ensure such barrier-free environment for children with locomotor disability. Right, so when a child is walking with clutches, right, sometimes the other children, they used to play, no? So running, and sometimes this child might fall down, right? So that type of children have to have different path for them to move inside the school. So for children who use a wheelchair, tricycle, a walker, crutches, or walking sticks, right? So access and a barrier-free environment. How those people we are accommodating them, and how we have to provide facility for them to go to their own class. And school can make a team of teachers, therapists, resource teachers, civil work personnel, and the members of school management committee to ensure to make the school accessible and barrier-free. So the term team will ensure building of ramps in the school with suitable gradients, providing suitable graded steps with convenient handrails in the corridors. So this is what we can do to have barrier-free environment, right? Suitable gradients, suitable steps, convenient handrails in the corridors, not slippery, right? Clearly marked passageways to assist in continuous movement, wide doors. So, are you all having these type of things in your school, right? And Shamin told that you have 2 special need children in your class. So, what type of special need they have?
Miss, Most of them they have some uh, disorders like sometimes they can't express what they want. They can't speak well, and they can't concentrate. Especially they try to run here and there, and they can't sit in just places. Most of the classes has LSAs, special need teachers,
Uh,
and
special need teachers are there, trained teachers are there.
yeah, yes,
Uh,
miss.
so are they taking the children separately or they are teaching in the
No,
same
miss.
class?
No, same classes because of while I'm teaching my lessons, uh, I'm going to each students, especially special need childrens, and I have different activities for them,
Uh,
and they can do it with the lesser teachers.
so uh, another teacher who trained for special need children also with you in your class in teaching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
It means
So they used
they're
so
supporting
sometimes,
for their
yeah.
students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some but screening teacher or mirror teachers, they are using that term, and for some students, right? Parents are appointing one teacher separately for that child, right? Because that appointed person will learn and teach to the student, right? So the mirror teacher, like. So enough space inside the bathroom for easy access for wheelchair users. So is any washrooms made with the help of, so you would have seen in the this airport, right? So there are separate washrooms and toilets for special need people, right? So we have that set up in our normal schools. So how they are going to uh, survive, right? So we have to think enough space in the classroom for their mobility, suitable heights of the installed electric switches and other equipment, suitable heights of the furniture in library, laboratory, dining place, and so on, right? So inclusive classroom means it should be accommodate normal children as well as differently able children. So differently able children have to, we have to satisfy the needs of the differently able children, not on the physical way. That means the furniture and even the board, right? And there are clearly laid down guidelines for these by the Office of Chief Commissioner of Disabilities, and it should be strictly followed while constructing this support system. So now already we have constructed schools, and it's the same type of schools, and normally in the government school earlier they were built, and there's no lift facilities, right? But um, in some schools, I have been to this teaching practice in international schools. Those schools have that facilities, but limited. Every time students can't use, they are allowing teachers to use, right? The emergency basis students also can use, right? But in our campus, there are washrooms for special need children, and the lift facilities also there, and the steps also, it's very broad, and trail rails are there, so they can easily move, right? It should be ensured that unobstructed flooring, including slip-resistant corridors and an accessible playground and other recreational areas for all children who are using assistive devices and providing appropriate furniture for individual child are made available. So for normal children, we have desk and chair, no? Right? So likewise, for the wheelchair student or the differently able children also must have the table and the chair according to their need. And resource teacher, who is resource teacher? Resource teacher is a specialized educator that focuses on helping children with physical and educational learning difficulties to develop their reading and writing skills. They must be organized, patient, good at motivating students, extremely understanding of people's individual needs, and able to accept people's differences. Right? So normally primary teachers are have to be very patient, right? So here more than that, because special need children are having different needs, and they will be they are not in a normal position, so there may be recently we went to one this place where disabled children are there, right? It's a home. So we can see how much sacrificing those teachers, right? So they are very kind and they are feeding the children. So and hypertension students are there and autism students are there. So so shouting and it's very difficult to control, right? So it's a very sacrificing and the real service. So the role of the teacher in inclusive education, interaction with family to be able to solve their problem, to develop new learning strategies, to be able to develop self-confidence, to be able to provide special facilities, and to be able to look after their personal needs and recognize their hidden talents, inculcate positive attitude in the able bodies children, right? So this is the role of inclusive education teacher. And if possible, so each and every school have to have a resource room, to have special class or regular education while in need of specialized supplementary instruction in an individual or small group setting for part of the day. So in Canada and some other countries like Switzerland, so they are giving more facilities. They have in every school have special classroom. So the special education teacher will be there in the classroom. Children will be going to classes for maths maths subject. There is a maths teacher available, special need maths teacher available. For each subject, specialized teachers available. So these children will be going and learning in those rooms. And life skill resource room. So some disabled children are good in these skills, different skills. So that can be identified and you can do something with those skills, right? And occupational therapy is concerned with analyzing the child's ability to perform in everyday context, right? So in the Montessori, in Russia, right, they are identifying the interest of the child. What type of toys that the child is using. what type of activity that child is always picking, right? So in that way, those teachers will categorize the children, and they are guiding those children to do in their field. So here these goals of occupational therapy intervention with children are to improve performance components, enhance performance of functional activities, modify performance context, prevent disability and social role dysfunction, increase self-esteem and self-actualization, and to promote positive interaction and relationship. So inclusion in school, physiotherapy, if possible, every school can have. And aids and appliances, assistive devices, right? So mental the MD children, so mental disability children require several types of aids and appliances, assistive devices, and assistive technology for their independent function, like for mobility, communication, education, vocation, or for performing day-to-day activities. So that type of facilities is there? Are we providing for children in our schools? Right? Maybe the number of students are less, but anyway. So, Shamin, in your school, what are the measures you all are taking to these students? The special teachers are there. Okay, so are they having these type of devices, things?
Yes, miss. Especially we have inclusion team also. And
So is your school is for only for special need children?
no, miss.
It's a
Because of miss,
no.
I'm teaching in not Sri Lanka. I'm teaching in UAE. That's why.
Really? That UAE country, of course, they are developed, and lot of
Yeah,
facilities are
miss.
there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right. That's what. Because then think of our Sri Lankan schools. You can compare with our schools, right? So now you are in a UAE school. So that setup of schools and our schools, right? So maybe we are in developing stage, and they are already developed, and they have enough of money to spend, right? And adapted furniture includes adapted chair, CP chair, corner stools, lap boards, and standing frame in position a child with CP. So here, these are the things, right? We have these type of appliances to use special need child, right? Because they can't hold the pencil correctly. With this small this instrument, you can make them to hold in a correct position, right? So see that child is writing in different way, right? So here, learning aids for disabled. So, Shamin, is your school in UAE have this type of aids, teaching aids?
Yeah, miss.
So, infrastructure modification. I think your school, that UAE school will be having these type of things, because education is a right means, play also they are right, and recreation also they are right. Here you can see in this first picture, wheelchair child also there, and so see the different furnitures, right? And the facilities. And the second one, the trails are there, right? To protect them. Here you can see this child in the wheelchair digging soil and playing, right? That facility is also there. So this child drawing and enjoying, right? So infrastructure modification. So barriers in inclusive education, negative approach, lack of physical facilities, lack of funds, lack of trained teachers, social discrimination, emotional problems, educational problems, attitudinal problems, inappropriate curricula. Right? So this discrimination is there, right? So because one of my friend, right, she's having a special child. So she got retired, early retirement from the job to look after this child. So every day that mother is also going to school with the child and staying outside, right? Whenever the child need any help, the mother will be helping. But the mother was so sad, the teachers are not teaching anything to that child. Right? So that child is separately seated. And so actually, even though we are saying inclusive education, it is not inclusive, right? And they are the teacher don't want to take that child for this educational excursion. But this parent, that mother, request, I will look after and I will join and I will pay for their trip. And she accompanied her son with that child to the excursion. So we are talking about education for all and right? So that type of things are there, and that most of the teachers sometimes don't know whether they are not trained to teach special education. They don't lie, right? And I have one experience, right? So the College of Education, they are training a few of the students for special education. But the saddest thing, right? They are not teaching for special needs children, right? They are doing primary, secondary classes, and they are coming to do B.Ed in primary or secondary, right? So the other thing is special education degree also not available. Right? When I was there, I was designed a special education degree. So I think the first group of students, Bachelor of Education in Special Education, were out, right? So there are a few, right? Graduates are there to teach, right? So we have to create a path for them, right? Then they will do. And suggestions, the government have to give the highest policy and budgetary priority to improve the education system to enable them to include all children regardless of individual differences or difficulties. So then you at least one building or have to build for these type of children. But that is also not going to work because each and every class is going to have special need children, right? To adopt the principle of inclusive education, enrolling all children in regular schools, unless there are compelling reasons for doing otherwise. To include the education of disabled children in teachers training programs. Now, of course, I think the teacher education program, every teacher education program have one subject. So special education subject is there, right? in, I think, the early childhood education honors degree program, there are 4-5 subjects for special education. That means hypertension students and different type of these special needs, different subjects are there, right, to cater their needs. To access general education system for the children, to expand the coverage to reach the unreached population. And reforms in curriculum, using of teaching aids, simple curriculum, adequate facilities, participation in games. So for the disabled children, Paralympic. For the normal people, Olympic. For disabled people, Paralympic, right? Sometimes, right, this, I think in Sri Lanka also, some Down syndrome children placed in Paralympic. When that Paralympic was conducted by Australia, I think they won 2 places, right? There's a home for Down syndrome students in Jaffna, right? From that school, 2 students went to Australia and won, right? One a bronze medal and silver medal. So participation in games, cooperative curriculum, providing reading material, participation in co-curricular activities, multi-level and flexible curriculum. Because we have to think, right? So for among the normal children, we can produce doctors, engineers, lawyers, bankers, veterinary, and dentists, all those things. But among these differently able children, if they are interested, they can do it. But according to their interest, we have to do something, right? Because they also have to survive in the community. And design of classroom for inclusive education, right? Size of class, teaching aids, restriction of time, arrangement of light, attention to physical needs, special attention to disabled children, right? So design of classroom also you have to think of. And teaching strategies, this is the most important thing. You can't teach the differently able children as normal children, right? You have to have different strategies. So these are the strategies you have to use: cooperative learning, peer tutor. Peer tutoring means, right, one child will help to another child. Then they don't have any kind of inferiority, right? Same peer group. So they like to learn. And multi-sensory teaching. This is also used in these special need classes or inclusive education. So Shamin, are you all using this type of classes, and this? Are you all using this teaching method, multisensory teaching?
Sometimes, miss.
So is this method is successful, better than other methods?
Yeah, miss.
So actually they are differently able. So according to their ability, you can use multi-sensory teaching. And support services, guidance and counseling, right? So under guidance and counseling, you will give counseling services, right? So to give confidence, a physician have to have therapist, psychologist, support services by parents, teachers, special teachers, and community. Others, nurses, assistive technology, alternative materials, teaching aids, special profession for assessment, etc. So these supportive services also provide by the government have to provide for schools, right? And conclusion, inclusive education responding to special needs will thus have positive returns for all students, all children and young people of the world with their individual strength and weaknesses, with their hopes and expectation have the right to education. So those children also children, they have their own interest and like, dislike. They also like to lead a good life, right? So it is not our education system that have the right to a certain type of children. Therefore, it is the school system of a country that must be adjusted to meet the needs of all its children, right? So here you can see even the wheelchair child also have to pass the examination like normal children, right? Can you hear the sound?
Can't, madam. Can't hear the sound.
Yes, sir. And
We can't hear the sound, madam.
no sound.
No sound.
Read the first sentence and tell me what the adjectives are.
No, okay, madam.
Okay, come on. Let's all mark the adjectives together. Just read the sentence for me. Just read the sentence, Ishant.
The teams and all, there is
ये तो नाच रहे हैं.
Silence. Speak in English.
The letters are dancing.
They're dancing, are they? Okay, then read the dancing letters. Trying to be funny?
वो
Read the sentence loud and proper. I said loud and proper, Ishan. Loud and proper. Loud and proper. Stop it. Enough is enough. Get out. Get out of my class. Out. You want to leave as well? Who is laughing here? Who wants to follow him? I don't want to hear a titter in my class. Look at your books. Shameless boy. Open your books now. Who's going to tell me what the adjectives are? I don't want to stand from this class. Yes.
So this boy is disabled. That means that child can't read the letters, right? So these messages are very important.
I don't want to stand.
Here you can read, what do you do when your son or daughter student fails academically, right? Poor academic performance could be because of physical causes, poor intelligence, other neurological disorders, emotional disorders, environmental factors, or learning disorders. So this child is having learning disorder, dyslexia, right? So before labeling the child as lazy or dull, parents and teachers have to probe in all these dimensions and provide appropriate help. So learning disorder types, reading disorder, dyslexia, mathematics disorder, dyscalculia, disorder of written expression, dysgraphia. Right, so we will learn these things in other presentations, other classes, right? So this is the good message every teacher must know, right? Famous personalities with learning disorder, Leonardo da Vinci, painter, he's also having this, he's also in the small age disabled person. And Thomas Alva Edison, the inventor of bulb, Albert Einstein, scientist, and Woodrow Wilson, former president of USA, Winston Churchill, all had disabilities, but they became, they are very popular. So, so who knows, your child could be next in the list, right? So, know about the mental illness, help the affected. For more information, so this is this part, this small video clip is from Tare Samirpan in Hindi film. That film is based on the disability of the child and how the this is one teacher, right, handling wrong way, but the other master handling correct way, and he helped a lot to this child, and she became a good painter, right? So can you see the slide? Hello, can you see the presentation slide? Is it
Yes,
visible?
madam. Yes.
Huh?
Yes,
Ah,
madam.
right. So there's time right now, 8:33 up to 9 we can learn. And I think they have given only 4 classes to do this special education. So, so it's better we can continue this second presentation also. Right. So under special education, this is lecture 1, right? So now we have learned what is inclusive education, right? So inclusive education means inclusive, normal plus disabled, right? So inclusive education and what is the plight of inclusive education in our country and how it should be, right? That type of thing you have to know, right? Now we'll go for the special education. So earlier we learned what is inclusive education. Here you must know what is special education, right? So special education, right, refers to a range of educational services and practices designed to meet the needs of students with disabilities or learning differences. So we will learn the disabilities, learning difficulties, both, right? These services are tailored to provide students with the necessary support to ensure they succeed academically, socially, and emotionally in ways appropriate for their unique strengths and challenges. So earlier, they kept all the disabled learning difficulty children together and they try to give academic education, right? So they did something to gain social skill. So they treated emotionally, right? But now under inclusive education, they taught we can't segregate that students and we can't teach them separately, right? So their mentality will be psychologically affected. So they also have to be with the normal children. So under special education only, the inclusive education came. So special education or special needs education is the form of education plan for students with special needs in a way that addresses the students, right? So individual differences. Is anybody know what is individual difference? So even in 4 of you, right? Your name is different, your color is different, your interest is different, your O-level results is different, A-level results is different, degree, this theme is different, right? Stream is different. Your thinking ability, creativeness, everything is different, right? So individual differences are there. As teachers, you can see the individual differences in your classroom, right? So first one is individual differences and second one is needs. Each and every child have his or her own needs. So special education as an instruction-based program that is specifically designed to meet the special need children with disabilities. Right, so under special education, if you all are learning, even under this, I will teach what is the how you can teach and what is the difficulties that children have. And special education means specially designed instruction that meets the unusual needs of the exceptional students. Right, so they are different from normal students, exceptional students. Right, maybe they are slow learners or mental retardedness, or they are having hypertension, Down syndrome, right? So they are exceptional students. Special education is a form of learning provided to students with exceptional needs, such as students with learning disabilities or mental abnormalities, right? So, purpose of special education. Earlier, we learned the purpose of inclusive education. Now, purpose of special education. So, special education aims to ensure that students with disabilities are provided with an environment that allows them to be educated effectively. Right? So, here the name is also special education, not the normal education, special education. That means education suitable for differently able children. So disabilities that qualify for special education include all types of physical, mental, and behavioral disabilities. So objectives of special education to provide appropriate educational programs and related to services to each child with a disability requiring special education from age 3 through 21 years. Right, so if you go to type disability, right, in Tamil, right, there are a lot of videos available how in India they treat disabled children and teach disabled children, right? So one video is available, right? I will check for it and I will show in the next class, right? So our campus master students, they are also learning guidance and under guidance and counseling this special need education, right? To provide activities that foster social development and adjustment into the regular school and community activities. To identify disabilities among preschool children. So this point is very important. If we can find in the early stage, right, we can do something, right? So preschool teachers also have to have this knowledge. So preschool teachers, teacher training program also have to include inclusive education and special education. To provide opportunity to participate in an approved preschool program within a reasonable distance from child's home, or to provide a coordinated and comprehensive instructional program for kindergarten through high school. So I think one of our students is doing a research on screening, right? In the preschools, they're screening for disabilities. So if she is preparing a tool, right? So if that tools work on, right? So they can identify the disabled students, minor disabled and the other disabled, of course, we can observe not directly, right? So the minor disabled can be screened and identify, right? So that will reduce the dropouts number, right? So because some few children, right, even parents also don't want to send the child, right? they have the dignity and prestige, right? They don't want to ask any this criticism of their child. And sometimes the children don't want to go to school because inferiority complex and they are thinking that they can't, right? So in that way, the screening is also important. They provide coordinated, comprehensive instructional program they can prepare if they screen and identify the problematic children. So objectives of special education: to provide appropriate related services to the students with disabilities according to their needs. Right? Provide appropriate related services to the students with disabilities according to their needs. To encourage parental involvement and understanding of special education programs. So first, so before screening, here we are talking about mild these disabilities. So the parents have to aware. They, from the beginning, if they can identify, right? So without identify only, they are sending the children to school. So at least preschool teacher have to identify, or a primary teacher have to identify, right? To provide appropriate vocational services to the students with disabilities, to provide a healthy and friendly environment in and outside the school for each student with a disability, right? So, classification of the disabilities by who? Who is disabled? To whom we can say differently able, right? So first one, impairment, refers to physical, mental defect or loss of reduced function of a body part or organ. That is impairment. And the second word is disability. So if a person have any impairment, that means physical, mental defect or function, dysfunction of body organ, we are saying disabled. Disability, it refers to a person level limitation in physical and psychocognitive activities. Psycho means, you know, and cognitive means knowledge. Or an impairment which limits the ability to perform certain tasks. Handicap, a problem encountered during interaction with the environment, in term the handicap. So these three categories coming under who is disabled, right? So who are special people? So special people are those who need special education and related services. They include a child who has an intellectual disability. Intellectual means knowledge. They are slow learners. They are very poor in performance, academic performance, intellectual disability. Hearing impairment, including deafness. They can't hear, right? So if a child have a hearing difficulty, so definitely that child can't work as a normal child because less of hearing. He can't hear properly. So you can see the signs, right? The child will come closer to you and speak. Always is alert because and lip reading is always watching the face of the lip moving of teacher, right? And speech or language impairment, that means the child can't speak properly. Visual impairment including blindness, serious emotional disturbances, scared and, you know, shouting, screaming, so that type of things. And orthopedic impairment, right? and then victim of autism. So autism spectrum disorder, ASD, are both general terms for group of combined disorders of brain development. Autism is a complex developmental disability that typically appears during the first 3 years of life and affects a person's ability to communicate and interact with others. So autism means they can't communicate and interact with people. So autism is characterized in varying degrees by difficulties in social interaction, verbal and non-verbal communication, and repetitive behaviors. So the verbal, non-verbal communication also different, and they are repeating again and again. Presently, all autism disorders are merged into one umbrella diagnosis of ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Right? So there is a film with autism boy, right? I can't remember the name. Tamil film is there. And that child is always having a horse, this toy. So with him, and later he became a good runner, right? So here, this is autism. So you can see that child. So looking a little bit different from normal child, right? And dyscalculia, learning disability in maths. So these children can't understand the numbers, can't add, can't deduct, right? So they are finding difficult to do math sums. And dysgraphia, learning disabilities in writing. So these children can't identify the letters. And dyslexia, learning disabilities in reading. So in that video clip, you would have seen that a child, the teacher is asking to read, but the child is telling that the letters are dancing. So the teacher is asking, then read the dancing letters, right? So dyslexia means learning difficulties, disability in reading, right? So if you want any more this explanation, you can go to this website and find out. Here, Down syndrome. So from the face, you can identify the Down syndrome children, right? So this is a genetical disease. So these children have more than one chromosome. We have 46 chromosome, but these children have 47, right? This is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Right, so these children are coming under disabled children, differently able children. So individualized education programs you have to think of. In many countries, including US, students receive special education services, have an IEP, which is the legal document that outlines the specific educational goals, accommodations, modifications, and support services that the students need. Right? So many countries are providing this type of need, the help. Diverse disabilities. Special education services support students with a wide range of disabilities, including but not limited to learning disabilities. So dyslexia, ADHD. So ADHD means attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right? So autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Intellectual disabilities, emotional and behavioral disorders, physical disabilities, sensory impairments, vision or hearing loss. So this is somewhat children's problem, right? Sometimes the elder people can get these things in their old age. Loss of hearing, loss of this vision. Here you can see ADHD signs and symptoms in children. So as a teacher, if you can observe these type of things, you can come to a conclusion. This child is infected by ADHD. This special need, right? So forgetfulness, can't remember anything, careless, always a poor performance, risky behavior, throwing and smashing, right? Trouble getting along, right? They are fighting because small children, they will fight for the same toy, right? And disorganization. He or she can't organize in proper way. Excessive talking. So these type of children, so the teacher have to bear up. That's what the special need teacher have to have good patience, right? And daydreaming. And difficulties sitting still, right? So the hyperactive children, they can't stay in one place for a long time, right? So ADHD signs and symptoms in children. So this is also symptoms of ADHD. Hysterics, tiptoeing, sensitive to loud noises, rejecting cuddles, ignoring the danger, delayed speech development, build toys in one line, avoiding eye contact, playing alone. Right? So especially primary preschool teachers, Montessori teachers have to know this. If you observe any signs like this, right, you have to aware the parents to take some action. And adaptation and supports. Special education can involve different teaching methods, adapted materials, and specialized equipment such as assistive technology. And so I told this assistive technology method only used by that Thailand teacher, right? Speech to text software, hearing aids, modified curriculum or lesson plans, additional time for assignment or test, right? So we are not giving additional time or in even O-level, A-level test for special need children, right? And I think 2-3 years before, I think they started to give a 5 to 10 minutes time, right? But that is also not enough. Behavioral support and therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, social training, inclusion versus segregation, right? So we learn this inclusive and inclusive means to keep together. Segregation means we are dividing them. Special education may take place in a separate classroom or school setting, but there is also growing emphasis on inclusive education where students with disabilities are integrated into general education classroom. That system is we are having now alongside their peers. Inclusion helps promote social interaction, a sense of belonging, and the opportunity to learn from diverse experiences. So here you would have understood why we are having inclusive classes, inclusive schools, inclusive education, right? Inclusion helps promote social interaction, sense of belonging, and the opportunity to learn from diverse experience. And collaboration. So special education often involves close collaboration among various professionals, including special education teachers, general education teachers, speech therapists, counselors, and parents. Right? So possible forms of special education, specialized teacher techniques, special materials, and special facilities. Right, so we'll continue this second presentation in the next class, right? So continuously we will learn about learning disorders, learning difficulties, and how to identify the things and what we can do for them in the classroom. Right, so I think all the others left. Shamin only there because Shamin is working with special needs children, so she's interested, he is interested. Am I correct, Shamin?
Yeah, miss.
So the others, they are not working with special needs children. That's what they left. So, okay. Anyway, we'll continue this in the next class, right? I think we have another 30 odd slides are there, right? And I have prepared the learning difficulties and disorder presentation also. Right, within 4 classes, I have to complete. That means I have to give a basic these concepts and educate the related things. Right, I'll try my best. Okay, thank you, Shamin.
Thank you, miss. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night, miss.